Okay, hi everyone. It's Saturday before your midterm essay week. And so, what I thought I would do is just post another quick video, what I'm looking for in your midterm essay to help you as you kind of begin to write that. So, I've just finished reading all your posts from Interfaith Just Peacemaking for this week. And you all, many of you mentioned just. That it was great to read another perspective or these three great Abrahamic faiths in conversation around a specific topic. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Thistlewaite's book is that what she asks people from each religious tradition to do is bring their tradition to the conversation, not to look for the lowest common denominator between the traditions, but to say, hey, in the fullness of your tradition, what might your tradition say about this practice of peacemaking, and then put that in conversation with one another. And so that's why I really appreciate the book in that way, and I think it's a great model for our conversations when we talk about particular questions, ethical and moral questions, and especially when it comes to questions that we might have conflict over. So I really appreciated your reflections there. I probably won't post a video in relationship to the content because you all have enough to do right now to write your essay. So what I want to do is just post some basics of the architecture of the essay that I'm looking for. So hopefully it will be helpful to you and you can write a successful essay. The first thing that I want to talk about is in the basic architecture for your essay, I want you to be able to articulate the pacifist perspective, and then also give some subtle nuance between maybe a strict pacifism and a pacifism that includes nonviolent resistance. And so kind of looking for that. And in Feinberg and Feinberg, the authors give 4 different kinds of pacifisms that you might want to bring into your essay when you talk about pacifism. They are universal pacifism, private and personal pacifism, Christian pacifism, and anti-war pacifism. And so you'll want to kind of take a look at those because they each have a little subtle nuance. And when you talk about pacifism and nonviolence, it's really important to understand maybe what kind of pacifism that people are appealing to when they talk about it. So articulate the pacifist perspective. Also, again, articulate the just war theory perspective. These are the 2 poles that we're trying to be in conversation with when we talk about what is our response to an injustice. Is violence ever warranted, or what kind of practices can we take up to reduce the injustice? And so articulate just war theory, and I want you to be able to articulate it in 3 categories: justice before war, justice ad bellum, justice in war, justice in bellum, and then justice post-war and justice post-bellum, using the Latin. And there are criteria that are listed in Feinberg and Feinberg and in Cahill's book, the Peace Building book. And so you'll want to be able to articulate what are the criteria before we go into war that have to be met in order for the war to be a just war? What are the criteria in war that have to be met in order for it to be a just war? And what are the criteria that have to be met after the war for it to be considered a just war? And then again, I gave you an additional article by David Gushee where he articulates a hard just war theory and a soft just war theory that you might want to include in your essay as well. And then thirdly, this is a peacemaking class, so this is really important. Where does peacemaking fit into the conversation between pacifism and just war theory? And how does it complement each theory in its particular way? And so I want you to be able to articulate how peacemaking complements pacifism and how peacemaking complements just war theory as well. And then I want you to be able to articulate and list, not in a bulleted list or an outline list, but in prose, the 10 practices of peacemaking, giving a brief description of each. You can't be too long on the description, so it has to be like a 1 or 2 sentence description of each one. And if you want to and you have time, only if you have time though, you can add some texture to 1 or 2 just to kind of build your answer out in that particular area. So you can take one of the peacemaking practices like promoting democracy or something like that, and you can develop it outward. Take a look at that. How does peacemaking complement just war theory and pacifism? What are the practices of peacemaking? And then being able to explain them in your own words. And then and then if you have time to articulate maybe 1 or 2 of them in a little bit more textured detail. Okay. Then I would like you to make an effort to compare and or contrast Cahill to Interfaith Just Peacemaking. So her model for peace building, how she talks about it, who she says influences peace building. Compare that to the authors of Interfaith Just Peacemaking, and how are they talking about peacemaking? Who are their influences, or who influences peacemaking from their perspective? And so just tease out a little bit what you see in the differences between them. There are some subtle differences between Cahill and between the authors from Thistlewaite's book. So basically that's what I'm looking for in your essay. So again, really quickly in summary, be able to articulate the pacifist nonviolence perspective, be able to articulate the just war theory perspective, use Feinberg and David Gushie's article to help supplement what you've read in Cahill and in Interfaith Just Peacemaking. Then talk about what peacemaking is and how it complements both theories. Then be able to articulate the 10 practices of peacemaking and give a brief description of each of them. And if you have time to then articulate maybe a little more detail one of them. And then the last thing is to make an effort to compare and or contrast Cahill to Interfaith Just Peacemaking. If you get all of those within 7 pages, you will do well on the essay. And I'm just expecting you all to do well. So far, class has been great. And, just take the time, write it well. What I'm looking for is a well-written essay. This is not an exam, so you have time to craft your essay. You have time to edit it. And so I want it to be well-written. And then I want you to cover those basic elements of the essay, what I've asked you in the midterm essay prompt, and here what I've tried to articulate in this video. So if you do all those things, you should do well. Remember, it's no less than 5 pages and no more than 7 pages. I won't accept more than 7 pages of prose. If you use the title page, that doesn't count in your 7 pages. Also, if you decide to quote an author, you can just put a quote in parentheses at the end of the sentence. You don't have to footnote it, and you don't have to have a bibliography because I know which sources you're working from. I don't want you to use any outside sources besides the ones that are available to you in class, including the Gushie article and Feinberg. The Stassen chapter on the Sermon on the Mount. You can draw from that if you'd like to, and then of course Interfaith Just Peacemaking and peace building. So you don't have to have footnotes, you don't have to have a bibliography, but if you do have a title page, that doesn't count towards your 5 to 7 pages. Has to be 12-point font, double spaced, and then regular margins, 1 inch on each side. Okay, I think that's everything. I'm praying for you this week as you write. I know it's a little stressful because it's a major assignment, but just relax. Tell me what you know. And if you want and need help from somebody, reach out to one of your classmates, either somebody you've had in a class before or somebody who you've read the post and you thought, they might have some insight in this. I don't mind if you cooperate together, so please do reach out to one another. And then if you need any clarifications, please reach out to me, either by text or phone call or email. Okay? All right. Have a great week. I'll be praying for you. And again, I'm not traveling until next Friday. And so you can catch me via text, phone, or email.